A lot of times, and me and Mike talk about this all the time, Latinos are an afterthought. We get there late. We show up with a message they may or may not like. It's happenstance in the last 10 days during early vote. But all three of the campaigns you described that were huge successes started early. And we showed up and talked to folks about working class issues that they cared about. But the key was the issues, the earliness, and the cultural competency to get it done with three great candidates, I'd like to say. James Talarico is really special, and he really connected with Latinos all across the state. You cannot argue with the way that you saw these border counties that me and Mike have been talking about dramatically swinging to the right. 3 times outvoted Republicans in their own primary. That was crazy, Mike. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Latino Vote podcast. We're going to call this the Post-Texas Tornado Podcast. Mike Madrid.
Hell of a week, brother. Hell of a week. How are you feeling? You getting some sleep, or you like...
Look, the old man on Tuesday night, because we didn't have no results, and I stayed up past midnight. You know how long it's been that I stayed up past midnight with my clothes on?
This is a funny story, because I was doing a podcast live with The Hill, like going over the precinct analysis, and I've got CNN. I'm in New Orleans, by the way. I got to go give a speech in New Orleans. And I'm in my hotel room, and like there's bad, in-room dining, and I'm like going over precinct data, and I'm watching CNN, and I'll be damned if I don't see this black cowboy hat bouncing up right above the chyron, like, and everyone's mobbing you and wants to take pictures of you. And it was great to see you in your moment, man. Hell of a run, hell of a night. I can't wait to hear all about it. But first, I got a question for you. Why is it that the political establishment has not seen this clear trend line? And Mike Madrid, I always believe once something happens, it can be, a curiosity. The second time can be a coincidence, but the third time is a trend line. So let me say this. Chuck Rocha manages Bernie Sanders' campaign for president, record number of Latinos, record number of Latino turnout. Chuck Rocha, senior advisor to Senator Ruben Gallego, defies all odds and pulls out a record number of Latino votes in a battleground state, in a Trump-won state where there's Trump-Gallego voters. And then now Caesar coming back in after his triumph, winning the Talarico seat. Bernie Sanders, Ruben Gallego, James Talarico. The common thread is Chuck Rocha. Proud of you, brother. You're doing everything that you say, everything we talk about on this podcast, and it's working, it's working, it's working. I'm still seeing like these groups, these lefty groups like the Republic interviewing these white consultants about how they won the Latino vote. And I'm just like, what's it going to take in this country and this party to figure out that maybe people who know and understand the community know what the hell they're doing? What is it?
Look, dude, I really appreciate that in kind words. And I'll say this about all three of those campaigns. They all had one thing in common. They had amazing staff. They had great managers. They had great Latinos that were actually out talking to folks about the things that you've talked about. That's the through line. Look, I've had a lot of great opportunity to get to work on those races. This week was amazing with James Talarico. Ruben's my boy. I'll never be able to repay Bernie and Jeff for all the flexibility they gave me on that campaign. But there's a few things that they all three have in common. And you talk about actually Mike Madrid a lot. It's the message, it's the delivery.
There you go.
And it's the consistency of talking to people about the shit that they care about.
You got to listen to people,
That's what it
brother.
is. It's nothing dramatic. And let me add this. There was a lot of money spent by all three of those guys to actually go talk to Latinos, not just on the ground, and that happened. Not just in the mailboxes, but that happened. But in Spanish, lots of Univision, lots of sporting events, lots of award shows, and in English and in digital. What does that all have in common? A lot of times, and me and Mike talk about this all the time, Latinos are an afterthought. We get there late. We show up with a message they may or may not like. It's happenstance in the last 10 days during early vote. But all three of the campaigns you described that were huge successes started early. And we showed up and talked to folks about working class issues that they cared about. But the key was the issues, the earliness, and the cultural competency to get it done with three great candidates, I'd like to say. James Talarico is really special, and he really connected with Latinos all across the state. You cannot argue with the way that you saw these border counties that me and Mike have been talking about dramatically swinging to the right. 3 times outvoted Republicans in their own primary. That was crazy, Mike.
I gotta say, I was on the phone this morning with my dog, Bobby Polito, who I love. He's
what in the world is going on?
This guy's one of my favorite candidates. He gets this stuff, and like we'll be talking about messaging, and he just immediately, it's so instinctive with this guy. He's so of his community. There's nothing, and he's like, Mike, sometimes I got to get into it with my DC consultants, and I'm like, good, you get into it. You know your people. You don't get to where you're at without knowing your community and being able to connect with people. Trust that. Trust those instincts. And that's what I love about what you're doing too, Chuck, is you go walk into these environments and it's like, look, I know these communities. I grew up in these communities. I know how people talk. I know how they think. I know how they're going to make decisions. And it's got to be frustrating for you. Look, I'm a Republican. It's been frustrating for me for 35 years, so I get it. But I always thought that, Democrats was just easy and they'd listen to you guys. When you do what you did with Bernie, you do what you did with Rubin, you do it with Talarico, like that's got to be the point, right? Where they figure it out. Is that the point, or is this you got to do more?
We will see. I love everybody giving me the credit, and I take the credit, and I love all the folks and all the messages I've got. But there was a lot of staff. The deputy manager of this campaign is a Latina, who was from the state of Texas. The field director, the folks that are out in the field doing this work. There was amazing staff on this. The manager put together a team. Lots of folks were like, "Well, what about this and what about that?" They ran a good operation. They didn't get distracted by polls that showed the opposition up 15 points, and I want you to tell me about that and how that happened.
Yeah.
But they didn't get distracted from the plan. Get these numbers, Mike, and this is a first here for the Latino Vote podcast. 28,000 volunteers, 485 community-based events in 6 weeks, 4.7 million peer-to-peer texts from volunteers to other voters in English and in Spanish, over 100,000 conversations at the door. That don't sound like a lot in Texas, but when it's targeted to communities, that grassroots makes a difference. But the reason Beto O'Rourke lost is that he only did that. Bobby Polito, James Talarico did two things. They knocked on the doors, but they ran a shit ton of Spanish ads, a whole bunch of English ads. There's a Univision award show that if you were just an outside buyer, you would never buy this award show. You'd be buying morning news and evening news, Mike, like we've always done.
Right.
But the team came up with the concept. I was there, but this was a team effort. Again, I'm going to always defer to the team. So let's buy a bunch of advertising around this Texas exclusive Spanish language award show about the music industry in Texas. It's listened to broadly on TV, and we bought a lot of advertising there, and we were the only ones there advertising. Same thing with the Mexico-Iceland soccer game. These little nuances matter, and that advertising itself does not make you have this dramatic effect, but you layer that on the grassroots, on the message, on the delivery. This guy talking about Jesus, talking about working class, talking about not left and right. Then you have the perfect storm, and it starts to look like Ruben Gallego. It starts to sound like Bernie Sanders. It looks like Bobby Polito. Then you start, to your point, seeing a pattern, right?
Well, clearly. And like I said, it's working. So I'm hoping that those Democrats who listen to the show breathe that in a little bit and start saying, wait, it's a trend line. It's not these guys just being cranks on here. Maybe it's Mike Madrid who's a little bit cranky, a little bit of a grumpy cat. That's okay.
I usually keep him calmed down, and Bobby obviously grounds you.
Yes. But guys, this works. Everything that we're saying this from 35 years of experience of doing campaigns and knowing what moves the needle. And again, as we get to bigger prominence as a community in determining the outcomes of not just the primary voters, by the way, in the Democratic primary, which again, a 60-40 split, which is what it's basically looking like. Latinos broke 60-40 for Talarico. That was the race. That's the ball game. Jasmine Crockett got 83% of the black vote. 83%, not a surprise. And then Talarico, of course, overperforms with white voters. I think he was sitting at 64%. The difference maker is what we said on the show. We did a special show, special edition before this when you were in town, because we were saying the way this community breaks is going to determine the outcome of the Democratic primary is going to be. That's exactly what happened. 60-40. And here's what I thought was interesting. It was obviously the Rio Grande Valley. This was the Webb County, the Starr County, the Hidalgo counties, where there's some just eye-popping numbers blowing off the charts. These are these districts where everybody was writing all these stories about, going to Trump country by 80% swings over the last 10 years are now have moved away from Republicans dramatically. But it was also happening in Harris County, which is the most populous part of the state, as you taught us, in Houston, the urban core, Hispanic dense precincts. So it's urban Latinos and it's rural Latinos. And now get this, in that same Senate special district that we saw just 10 days ago in that special race outside the Dallas burbs in Tarrant County, that's a more suburban, not entirely, but a little bit more suburban than either Harris and Starr County, all breaking towards the Democrat, away from the Republican. 31-point swing in that special election. So the what is happening is broad-based and it's deep. It is happening in rural, urban and suburban communities, Latinos of all generations, of all races and ethnicities. We can go back to early 2025 and the other races that you were doing in New Jersey with Mikey Sherrill. It's Mom Donnie's race. It's in Miami's mayoral race with Cuban American Latino men, Republican men. It's here in California. We're seeing the same numbers. Latinos are voting monolithically at this moment in time. I mean, everybody's going to say, "Oh, Latinos aren't monolithic." That same old tired, bullshit. And there's a lot of truth to it. But at this moment in time, I'm going to declare it definitively: Latinos are monolithic. In 2026, we are voting monolithically. Will that change? Perhaps. But talk to us, walk us through what happened in Texas and some of the aftermath. What was the decision? What was the deciding factors when you knew, okay, we're in a good position? Because you were strutting a little bit. I could see that when we were talking. You felt confident. I know. I've been doing this long enough to know when somebody feels good about the race, when they don't. And you felt good going into the final stretch.
I did, because as soon as people started voting, and you could see where the vote, and this vote is out of, it's just incredible. First day, incredible. Remember last episode when we talked about Tarrant County?
Mm-hmm.
Remember when I teased everybody and told you that 30% of the electorate were non-regular primary voters?
Yeah.
I knew, but I didn't want to say it on the podcast. Those aren't Jasmine Crockett voters.
Right.
Those aren't new black folks showing up. A small percentage of them was. I take nothing away from the Congresswoman. She did the best thing she could do with such a small window of running. But I'll tell you this, is that when I saw 30% were coming in from non-regular voters, when I saw that 12% of the Democratic primary, Mike, had a Republican voting history, I knew that was Talarico voters. I didn't want to say it here because the other campaigns would have time to react via phones and text messages, right? So that was when I knew we were in a good way. And then as we continued, the pattern just kept escalating, Mike. More voters, more independents, more Republicans, more Latinos than ever had voted. The Valley numbers were off the chart. And I was like, unless I'm misreading this. And when the first ballots dropped that we saw in Texas, it was the in-person early vote numbers. I was like, this is done if she can't have a big number in Dallas and a big number in Houston. And she had big numbers and she won, but they weren't the big as they needed to be. I would tell everybody to Google New York Times Latino Vote Talarico. They've got a great map up by county that shows how Jasmine Crockett won all of these counties in East Texas, where I'm from, where most of the minority voters there are all black. There's very few Latinos as far as density goes as there are in Central and West Texas.
Right.
And just like a coloring book, Talarico wins all those because of the Latino vote.
Mm-hmm.
Mike just said, we delivered this vote for Talarico, and we did. And it's not because James Talarico and his campaign just went up on some Spanish ads in the last 2 weeks. That's normally what happens. That's what Jasmine Crockett and her super PAC did, like folks do all the time. Again, that's not a bad strategy. It's just proven to be stale and not work. Talarico starts earlier, and he does it over cross channels, not just Univision, but then digital and other things. But it's more than that, to Mike's point. And I give Mike shit about this, and he's right. The perfect thing is when you have the message that Mike Madrid talks about, but you do it over a long enough period of time to a broad sector of voters. We have micro-targeted ourselves down to almost not talking to anybody. You've got to open up that spigot, and that was one of the big things that Talarico did, is have this broader stroke. Now, it helps, and I know we have privilege to have some money and to raise $2.5 million from that CBS interview that didn't get aired. But here's the difference and the behind the scenes that I can give you. I can pick up the phone and call the manager and call James Talarico and go, we just got $3 million. Here's how we expand the targets on the Latino advertising, because we can see that it's working. And now we can see it in our polls that it's working. Let's expand it. And they're like, yes, Chuck, let's do that. And let's send me the things where we can expand it and do the award show and the soccer games. If there's not a Latino or somebody else in that room, not saying they would have figured that out, but that would have just went towards buying some more TV, which is not a bad strategy. And this is no knock on the campaign. They were amazing. And the team was amazing. But that's the difference in the nuance of being nimble on your feet when something like that happens, Mike.
And that's the future of campaigns. And I mean, you and I are obviously frustrated because we've been saying this for many, many years. The good news is they are finally kind of figuring it out. I think that is good news. It's a little bit late for, guys. I wish I was in my 20s, because you and I have been saying this since we were in our 20s. And we would have a very different country right now. We'd have a very different Latino politics than we have right now. The Republican and Democratic parties would be very different if they'd been listening, but they haven't. But here we are, right? These politicians they're lagging indicators. They're going to listen to everything else. They're going to listen to the party first until Latino candidates or candidates who actually understand this stuff get it and drive it. We've had Ruben on the show, Ruben Gallego. You've talked about Ruben, where he would tell his consultants, listen to Chuck. Listen to what he's saying. I don't care what the data says. You're listening to numbers. I'm listening to people. He knows his community.
It's what Bobby told you this morning, probably.
That's what Bobby's. Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He said, "Look, I hear you. I see the polls. I understand.
I live here. I talk to these people."
Yeah, and it's like that's the difference between winning by 53% and winning by 60%, and that's how you win a Texas. That's how you win in Arizona, in a battleground state, when Trump does well.
People should know that this Bobby Polito number was big. And what you don't know, unless you're a nerd, is that the woman who ran against Bobby from the left spent $1.2 million in this primary. I bet Bobby didn't spend but $200,000 or $300,000 and just stayed consistently on his message. He ran some ads. He didn't want to spend all of his money in the primary. But this woman went after him in a real way and said, "You're going to go left or you're going to lose." And he said, "I'm going to stay right here where I'm at, where South Texas is." And he won overwhelmingly. That's one of the lessons. I'm not saying all candidates have to run left or right. I'm just saying Bobby knows his district.
And you got to trust that. Again, both as a candidate and that's why you hire a Latino consultant, somebody who's got the experience and the confidence to stand up in a campaign and say, that's not what's going on here. That's not what's going on in my community. And that has been, I think, more than anything else, I'm going to talk about California here, be a little bit critical of my California. That's where Latino politicians in California just don't have the balls to do it. They would much rather follow the Sacramento consultants. And in California, the Democratic political consulting class is 99% white. And they're going into these Latino communities and saying, this is what you need to be talking about. This is where you need to be going. And the Latino politicians will do it. The Democratic politicians will do it. But what's happening? You're seeing lower voter turnout rates. You're seeing less engagement, less civic engagement with our communities. And now, recently, last 3-4 election cycles, you've been seeing this slippage to the right because they're not talking to the community the way Latino politicians know their own community, and they're trusting somebody else to tell them what to say and what to think and how to act and how to behave, as opposed to representing and fighting for your own people. And you know that. You were born in that. They're your family. They're your friends. They're your neighbors. Fight for them. Believe in them and believe in yourself in pushing back against the establishment and make the party adjust to you. You don't adjust to the party.
It's good, Mike. And something I'll be interested to see from you is when we get all, and I know it'll take a minute, so stop. But when we have this June primary in California, it'll be interesting to see, like, is this turnout phenomenon in Texas reciprocal to a Democratic run state in California? Because the Republicans run everything in Texas.
Yeah.
Democrats are pissed. For the first time in 20 years, more Democrats voted in the primary than ever had in the Republican primary. That don't happen. Mm-hmm. You know, what's going to happen with this contested governor's race? And does it gin up turnout? Are people just as pissed at Trump in California, even though the Democrats control that? So that'll be interesting to watch, just like this runoff in the Republican side. You know, Trump comes out and endorses Cornyn. Paxton said today that he'd drop out if we'd pass the SAVE Act or some shit like that. Like, it's going to be crazy. We're going to have a lot to talk about on this podcast, but 2 more points really quick.
Yeah.
One to this Houston point about Talarico. For those of you at home are like, how do you know these people in Houston voted for Talarico? Well, some important people for all of you could watch on Twitter live. Folks were putting up heat maps of where the most dense populations of Latinos, Black folks, and Asians lived in Houston. Some of these precincts are 80 and 90% either Asian, Latino, or Black. There's communities there. They live there. And then you can look at the results, and literally they the results over the density of Black and Latinos. And Jasmine Crockett won all the Black precincts, and Talarico wins all of the Latino precincts, right, just like clockwork.
Right.
And in 10 precincts in Houston live more people than 2 counties in the Valley in just 10 precincts because they're stacked on top of each other.
That's right.
And in the Valley, they live all up and down these country roads, and they're just not as dense. We talk about the Valley, but again, to Mike's point, it's only 8% of the population, like the Central Valley that Mike talks about. And then the second point I want to bring up really quickly is I want to give you, Mike, the results from that Texas 33 race that we've been talking about. That was the Julie Johnson, Colin Allred.
Yeah.
In Texas, you got to win 50% of the vote to go to a runoff. And here are the results. Colin Allred wins with 44% and gets 31,000 votes. Julie Johnson gets 23,000 votes and gets 33%. Carlos Quintanilla gets 10,000 votes and 14% and does not spend a nickel.
Wow, there you go.
Wait, there's a Democratic Socialist running in the 4th place who got 6,000 votes and got 9% of the vote. So you can see now how
What's
Latinos.
that candidate's name?
Which one?
The DSA candidate.
His name is Zishas Haviz. Haviz. I think he's Middle Eastern, some kind of like folk. I can't never do those names very good, but it's Zeeshan. Zishan.
Why? Yeah, don't look at me. I don't know.
Hafez, but he didn't spend any money, but he was DSA and he gave Julie Johnson and all red shit for taking AIPAC money and blah, blah, blah. But the kicker for this was the Latino who spent nothing gets 14% of the vote.
Yeah.
So now there's going to be this big test. Where do those Latinos go?
Yeah.
Do they go to Julie Johnson? This is going to continue now for 65 more days because that's how long it is to run off in this.
And
thing.
Colin Allred, I mean, I'm going to say it. I'm sure I'll get busted, but I don't care. I'm not, in your party and I don't make my living there. But Colin Allred was the one who was slapping down that card saying, this is, people of color got to vote together and stick together. And I'm like, man, brother, you do not understand Latino voters. And it's disrespectful to be talking like that. If you want to talk about poor people, broke people, working class people, you want to talk about that? Absolutely. But don't be injecting this racial politics. Like, when is the Democratic Party going to stop with that shit? Like, it's got to stop. Get past it. And I'm not saying that there aren't systemic problems. I believe that there's systemic racism. I will fight against that all day long, and I will stand arm in arm against that all day long. But do not equate the experience of Latino voters with black or white voters, right? I was getting a ration of shit. Maybe you were too, saying, "Oh, there it is. There's racist, misogynist Latino voters. Once again, they won't vote for a black woman." And I'm so tired of the mentality. And you know me, brother. I am petty. I will take on those fights because I'm also not afraid to go at, especially these activists who have this really narrow understanding of human behavior. And I'm also not afraid of black voices. Like, that's a Democratic thing where everyone's afraid to say that maybe that's not true. If it ain't true, I don't care who you are. I'm going to say that's not true. And if you want to back it up with data and evidence, I will have my mind changed. But I'm so tired of everybody saying, oh, Latinos are racist and misogynist. Like, that alone is racist. That message right there is racist in and of itself. Who was the top vote getting Democrat of all time for president of the United States? Barack Obama, a black man, by the way. Who was second? Hillary Clinton, a woman, by the way. Oh, well, maybe it's a black and a woman that makes us racist and misogynist. How do you explain Kamala Harris's whole damn career in California, dramatically overperforming with Latino voters? Like, as long as they're voting the way you want them to vote, everything is okay. But once they say, no, maybe you did fail on the economy. Maybe things are getting worse. Maybe I am going to hold you accountable. Maybe you are too partisan. Then suddenly I'm a racist and I'm a misogynist voter. That type of politics is going to kill the Democratic Party.
We're going to keep you posted on on Texas 33, Julie Johnson, Colin Allred in a runoff. There'll just be two of those. And that Latino vote again will make a difference. There's not a doubt in my mind that Colin Allred won. He benefited from the jacked up black turnout in Dallas, as it should. That's Jasmine Crockett's backyard. There was a ton of people that showed up to vote, and you get the repercussions of that, and that's why we have a democracy. They have every right to vote, and good for them. And Julie Johnson, there's no doubt, won a giant part of the Latino population and a lot of the white population and some of the black, by the way. And so when it's just them two, the 14% that the Latino candidate got is going to be the winning percentage for runoffs. And me and you know this.
Yeah.
Less people are going to vote in a May runoff during spring break any other time.
Yeah, I'm gonna switch to California real quick if I could, just because you brought it up, because I caused a little bit of trouble out here today.
Oh, damn it. We have a podcast. We need people listening.
I know. It's going to surprise you a little bit. I conducted a poll of Latino voters with a gentleman by the name of David Binder.
Whoa. I heard this Binder guy a couple times, and every Democrat I know hires that guy.
David Binder's the best in the business, I think, Republican or Democrat. I think David Binder is great. So it's a free plug for David Binder, but I use David all the time. I think he's great. He was Kamala Harris's pollster. And when he came into the Kamala Harris campaign, he came in after the Biden stuff, and I was like, okay, this is a shot they've got to kind of turn the ship around. But David's a well-known name in California. He does a lot of national work. I called David. I said, David, I need to test Latino sentiment here in California, just California voters. We're doing this big, broad-based look at the economy, ICE raids, crackdowns. There's going to be a big write-up on it in Politico in the next couple of days. But for shits and giggles, I threw in the governor's race in California to say, where are Latinos at?
How long was this poll? Because there's about 47 people running.
Yeah, there's about 47 people running in the California. And that's just the Democrats. So, Andreas, I'm going to give you a memo to kind of stick in the comments section here below, so that people can kind of see the outcome of the poll, and it showed some things that made a couple people cranky. The first is the top gathering Democrat for Latinos was, any guesses on who the 47 candidates?
Let me hey, it's got to be Javier Becerras.
It was not Javier Becerra.
What? Nope. Then it's the other Mexican. What's his name? He used to be the mayor of L.A.
Antonio Villaraigosa?
Villaraigosa.
Was not Antonio, brother.
What? Nope. That's only 2 Latinos.
I know.
Latinos would only vote for a Latino.
Yeah, no, the answer is Eric Swalwell, who's running. Yeah, now they're not huge numbers. There's 9%. And then the second one, I think, is Katie Porter. And then it's like Tom Steyer's at 5. Then it's Javier Becerra. Then Tom Steyer. Then Antonio.
I stepped on your lead. So the lead is that who was number 1?
Eric Swalwell.
Good. Yeah. I like Eric.
Yeah, Eric's good guy. But the point is, first of all, they're very low numbers. He's sitting in the number 1 position, but it's at like 9%.
Nobody's advertised.
No one's even out there. No one's even engaged. And that's kind of the message, is everyone kind of thinks, all this political chattering class, like, oh, this is all going to be Becerra and Antonio fighting for the Latino vote. They're not even in the top 2 amongst Democrats. But they're going to have to fight and compete for their own votes too. It's just not a Hispanic surname, just not a Latino last name. It's going to give you an automatic following in the Latino community, especially with a younger Latino demographic that don't know who Javier Becerra was. Like, they don't even know there is a Health and Human Services Department of which he was a cabinet secretary, or the Attorney General. They can't name who the current Attorney General is, and they certainly can't name the mayor of Los Angeles 15, 16, 18 years ago. And I know them both, and they're both fine fellows. It's not personal for all you Becerra and Antonio fans out there, because I know there's a lot of them. I ran as a senior advisor to Antonio's campaign for governor in 2018. He's a dear friend. I love him like a father. But math is what math is, and sometimes the math don't math. And right now it's not mathing, but it's teaching us something, Chuck. And that's the point I wanted to bring up is the Latino vote is changing. You don't just get 80% like a Jasmine Crockett does because you're a black candidate. That's not the way Latinos vote. That's not the way we make voting decisions. Does it give you an advantage? I believe it does. I think it gives you an opening, an ear to be listened to. But when Swalwell and Porter are beating Becerra and Villaraigosa, you have to listen to that data point. You may not like it, especially those Democrat consultants that are going to be shocked by this. But good, you should be shocked. Wake up. You're going to have a message that resonates and works, and tactics to back it up to win our vote. And I'm proud of that. I think that's fantastic, because it means, I think, finally Democrats aren't going to just be like, oh, we're going to just knee-jerk get these votes. No. You get traction, you get support, you get what Bernie got and Rubin got and Talarico got. When you put a good strategy and good policy and good tactics together, the results follow that. But without that, you don't just get it because of the sound of your last name.
That's true. And, people know Eric, and they know that he has been taking on Trump. And right now in this environment, they like somebody who talks about taking on Trump. Yeah. That's why they like Talarico. Different styles than Jasmine. But Swalwell's been taking him on. And I've gotten to know Eric. I don't know Katie Porter at all, but Swalwell is a good friend with Rubin. And Rubin and Swalwell came in together. They started this Young Guns Caucus, and they've both been out there like leading the charge to fight back on Trump, and a lot of working class shit that folks gravitate to. It's going to be interesting to watch this race as it develops. As you've talked about, we talked about with the poster from that big polling firm, an outfit that does like 30,000 samples that you said is the bedrock. What are they called?
Oh, Pew Research.
Pew. When the guy on Pew, when I was over in the overseas listening to the podcast, and he was talking about how the second and third generation Latinos are they're just different than these original immigrants who were dyed in the wool Democrats. Correct. There's a whole different opening, because these folks are true swing voters. And they know Swalwell, but they have no idea who Javier Becerra is.
That's exactly it. And I don't know why that threatens people. Like, it's a good thing for our community.
Yeah, make them work. Make both parties work for the vote.
Yes. Right? When everybody's working for the vote, we get results. When nobody does, you don't get results. And that's the difference. It may upset you as a political activist. It may upset you as a staffer. It probably really chaps your hide, if I can steal a Texas term. If you're
chap your ass.
Chap your ass, excuse me. If you're a Latino politician, it probably bothers you. But that is so good for our community. It's like, it's great that you understand my culture. It's great that you're from my barrio. But if you're not going to fight for the issues that our community is telling us, what good are you?
Exactly. Before we go, because we want to do a quick episode post the production here after the Texas primary, I wanted to let you know, Mike, I got you. If you'll notice behind me, that Talarico sign, I got you one at the house. I brought you one back like that and I put on the wall. But you should know.
Is it signed?
It's not signed, but I can get it signed. Mine's not signed either. Let's be clear.
Autographed.
I can get you that. You should know when these are rally signs.
Yeah.
And that Talarico sign you have at the rally and you're waving it at Talarico to show him you're with him. And the cameras are behind you. Guess what's on the back of that Talarico sign? Look next to the Robio sign here with Ruben. It says, the back of the sign says, love your neighbor.
That's beautiful.
First time I've ever seen a rally sign that a candidate gave up his name to be on the back to send a message to people. Again, something a little different. Does that mean everything to anybody? But it's just different, Mike.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's different. Now, what I really think was the sleeper issue that worked for Talarico that no one is talking about. You want to know what it is?
Tell me.
Black T-shirts.
What?
Yeah.
The black T-shirts?
And
you are a big black T-shirt fan.
People love them, man. I've seen the black T-shirts, Talarico for Texas. It's a good look. It's a good look.
Hey, we call it a Mike Madrid tuxedo on the podcast. Now, look, if y'all ain't on the YouTube, you're not even going to see the sign behind me or see the black T-shirt that I think Mike just washes every night in the sink.
It's the same
You've
T-shirt.
got to be subscribed to the YouTube channel if you want to see us. And I promise you, I'm worth looking at. And you can cover Mike's side of the thing with a piece of paper if you need to, but you should be subscribed to the YouTube. Look, a lot of the Latino Vote podcasters and our listeners, Mike, you're not going to like this, but they texted me. They sent me DMs. They were like, you and Mike were right, but I know you were more right. Thank you for what you've done. They were big Talarico fans. And so I want to thank our audience.
Yeah.
They were really, really cool about all the shit I was going through. And I was uptight until that first group of ballots come in. Then I was like, oh shit, this could be really good.
Yeah. I'm not afraid. Good. I'm not threatened at all when Chuck is right. I'm proud of him when he's right. I learn something from him all the time. I listen to what he's doing. I watch what he's doing on the ground. Before I knew him, I think if anybody knows our origin story here, I was watching this guy for years going, this dude's doing something different that hasn't been done before. That explained the Bernie, phenomenon. And no one had done what he was doing. So give my dog credit. Give him all the kudos. This is his moment. He deserves it. He deserves that recognition. We don't get recognized enough in this business, so I'm not going to take anything away from you. I love seeing you getting the kudos and the respect and the accolades that you deserve. There was one other comment that somebody had mentioned, which is we don't have enough women on this show. So I want to make a commitment to get more of our Latina sisters on the show, but I'm not even sure that is true. I think if we added up all of our guests, we would probably have at least as many women as men. But I hear the criticism we can't have enough and empower enough of our Latinos. So we're going to be doing a lot more of that. And as we get closer into the stretch, we will be bringing more and more guests onto the show because there's more and more candidates that we know are going to be nominees on both sides of the aisle. We're going to mix it up ideologically too. And we've got some surprises coming up in the summer with where the podcast is going to be and what we're going to be doing, both at the national level and some of these regional levels. So Chuck and I are going to be busy, but we're going to be on the road and we're going to be getting people fired up on both sides because this community is worth fighting for. And I'm looking forward to doing it with my brother, Chuck.
It's going to be a good time. I'm going to start lobbying Mike because we've never had a non-Latino on the show, but I'm going to try to get him to let Talarico come on because I'll tell him that Talarico was Spanish and from Portuguese or somewhere. That's how I'm going to get Talarico on. Y'all just pay attention. You hide and watch, as my mama would say. If your mama's lucky enough to still be with you, you call her and tell her you love her. If you're watching this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, share, like, love, and give Mike all the squirrel gifs you've got out there. And until next week, we love you all.